Once upon a time, in a small town nestled between green hills and winding roads, there lived a man named Kelvin. Kelvin was a kind-hearted, hard-working man who had a dream of opening his own store. After years of working odd jobs and saving every penny he could, he finally managed to open a small but promising convenience store on the corner of Main Street. He filled his shelves with everything from snacks to cleaning products, tools to toys, with the hope that his store would be the heart of the community. When he first opened the store, he felt a sense of accomplishment and excitement. Little did he know, the very people he was trying to help and support would end up being the ones who would bring his dream crashing down. At first, it started innocently enough. His friends, family, and neighbors would come in, often asking for a product, but with a request. "Can I pay you later?" Kelvin, being the loving man he was, couldn't say no. "Of course, no problem at all," he'd say, smiling as he handed over whatever they needed. Whether it was a pack of cigarettes, some bread, or a can of soda, Kelvin would add it to their tab, reassuring them it was fine, they could pay later. His friends and family took advantage of his kindness. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Every time someone came into the store, they'd ask for more credit. It became a routine one that Kelvin thought was harmless at first. After all, they were his people. They'd always pay him back, wouldn't they? But slowly, the balance began to shift. The shelves in his store started to empty faster than they were restocked. Kelvin was spending all his money and resources to keep the store running, replenishing stock that no one was paying for. Yet, he continued to extend credit, hoping that his friends and family would come through for him, just like they promised. As the months passed, Kelvin noticed something troubling. The store wasn't making enough money to sustain itself. Every time he tried to ask for the money his friends and family owed him, they would either make excuses or promise to pay him next week. But next week never came. The bills piled up. The rent on the store and the mortgage on his house were overdue. Kelvin couldn't keep up anymore. One morning, he received an eviction notice from his landlord, and the bank started sending letters threatening to take his house. It was all falling apart. Kelvin tried to reach out to his friends and family for help. Surely they would come to his aid now, wouldn't they? But every door he knocked on was slammed in his face. "Sorry, Kelvin, I can't help you right now," one friend said. "Things are tight for me too," another explained. When he asked for the money they owed him, the excuses kept coming. "I don't have it right now," they would say with a shrug. "Maybe later." His heart sank. He felt betrayed and alone. The people he had cared for, the ones he had helped over and over again, were the same ones who now turned their backs on him. Out of sheer desperation, Kelvin packed his belongings into a small suitcase and left his empty store, the place where he had once dreamed of building a future. He went to one of his closest friends, hoping for some shelter, but when he arrived, the friend refused to even let him in the door. "You need to figure it out, Kelvin. I can't take you in. Things are too hard for me right now." Feeling broken, Kelvin went to his family. His mother, his cousins, and even his siblings who had often visited his store for credit now turned him away. They told him they couldn't help him either. When he asked for the money they owed him, they mocked him. "You should have been more careful, Kelvin," his cousin said, laughing. "Now you're on your own." Kelvin stood there, feeling his whole world crumble around him. He had given everything to everyone, but now no one was there for him when he needed it the most. And then it hit him the lesson he had failed to learn all those years. He had never said no when he should have. He had spent years saying yes to everyone, putting their needs above his own, thinking that his kindness would be repaid in time. But the truth was, he had sacrificed his own stability and well-being for people who didn't respect him or his boundaries. His store, his house, and his dignity were all gone, and it wasn't because of bad luck or a lack of hard work, it was because he had failed to set limits. He had failed to understand that sometimes you must say no to protect your own future, no matter who the person is. If you keep giving and never ask for anything in return, you'll be left with nothing. His kindness had been exploited, and his inability to say no had cost him everything. The days passed, and Kelvin learned to rebuild his life slowly, this time with wisdom. He understood now that boundaries weren't just for work or business, but for relationships as well. He began saying no to those who asked for more than he could give, whether they were friends, family, or strangers. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary for his survival. He learned to be wise about his resources, his time, his money, and his energy. And as he moved forward, he found that those who truly cared for him didn't expect endless favors or free passes. They understood the importance of respect, responsibility, and reciprocity. The story of Kelvin teaches us all a powerful lesson. In life, it's important to know when to say no, no matter how close someone is to you. Kindness and generosity are important, but if you don't take care of yourself first, you will end up empty and vulnerable. Protect your boundaries and understand that being too giving without expecting anything in return will eventually lead to burnout and loss. True friends and family will respect your limits, not take advantage of them. Sometimes the hardest thing is to say no, but it's necessary for your own well-being. The people who really care about you will understand, and the ones who don't will eventually reveal themselves. It's better to learn to protect yourself now than to be left with nothing later. In the end, your own happiness and stability must come first. Be wise, be kind, but most of all, be wise enough to know when to say no.